Good evening. My name is Amanda, and I'm an alcoholic. First of all, I just want to say welcome to the newcomers. Welcome to everybody that identified as a newcomer. I'm so glad that you're here. Congratulations to everybody that is celebrating a milestone, that took a chip, and is celebrating a birthday. You know, the fact that we get to be here and do this is a miracle, and a special happy birthday to Tiffany. Tiffany is a member of my tribe, and if you don't have a tribe in Alcoholics Anonymous, I really encourage you to get one because it is an essential part of what has, allowed me to stay sober one day at a time for the last 20 years. So, okay, I was asked at the last minute to speak at another meeting for an hour on Thursday. So this is my second 45 minutes of the week, and I thought that that would dial it in. It did not. So I have had the opportunity to utilize the program that we have today. And I did do things like listen to Joe and Charlie today and cram in some extra spiritual reading as if the last 20 years of my experience wasn't going to carry me through this 45-minute talk. But, I did finally arrive at what I always arrive at, which is, I just ask my higher power to help me carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous and to speak through me to the person that needs to hear me the most this evening. So that's what I'm going to try to do, which is just surrender and lean into that. I have a sobriety date of June 24th, 2004. So like I said, I celebrated 20 years of sobriety this year. I got sober when I was 26 years old, and I got sober on my father's 20th AA birthday. So it was absolutely a miracle. It was a divine intervention that created that experience for me. It sounds a lot more romantic than it was, but it's still, but I still believe that was a truly just, all the things aligning and conspiring to allow me to have that sobriety date. So the way that happened is I used to go and give my dad a cake every year on his birthday, and on this year I didn't always give it to him right on his day, right? Sometimes it would be a couple days before or after, but this year it was a day that I actually gave it to him right on his actual birthday. And I went to that meeting and I heard a woman share, and I identified. And what I identified with was more feelings than I didn't yet understand what an alcoholic was exactly, but I knew that I was one, and I knew that that I identified with what this woman was sharing in the meeting. And so I called central office and I said, this is what I said. I said, I think I need to admit to God, to myself, and another person that I'm an alcoholic. Will you be that person? Is what I said to the person on the phone. Yes, that's only funny to people with over 20 years of sobriety. And they said, yes, I will do that. And then they got me to my next meeting. And at that meeting, I identified as an alcoholic for the first time. So I share about my childhood a little bit and my experience and what it was like when my dad got sober and all of that, not because any of that made me an alcoholic. It did not. It kind of gave me some maladaptive coping mechanisms that I've carried with me into adulthood that Alcoholics Anonymous has helped me navigate through, and it certainly gave me some reasons to drink, but this is just my experience, right? This is just what it was like and the experience that I had, before I got here. So I get, when I'm between the ages of when I'm born and when I'm 6, my dad is an alcoholic, an active alcoholic, and there's a lot of active alcoholic things happening in our household. And the culmination of those active alcoholic things was my father threatening to, holding my mother hostage and threatening to kill her in our house with myself and my brother there, and also threatening to harm myself and my brother, and the SWAT team coming to get myself and my brother out of the house after my mom was able to run out and get out. And my uncle was a police officer, so he's actually the one that came and got me out of the house when that was happening. And that was the last time that my dad drank. So it is not a bad story, but that is, what happened. This was how our family entered into Alcoholics Anonymous, was this experience. And it's interesting to continue to share that story and like process it more over time. But again, that didn't make me an alcoholic. It was just an experience that I had, and that was the catalyst for my father getting sober. And perhaps if it wasn't such a dramatic experience, he wouldn't have done that, and then I wouldn't have had the sober dad that I did get to have. And my dad, did pass away sober, and he was a reliable person. I could, through my entire adult life, if I called my dad really for anything, to show up for me for anything, he was able to show up for me. So I will always be grateful for that. All of us have varied traits. He was a man that had varied traits and other less lovely characteristics, but I will be forever grateful, because without Alcoholics Anonymous, I would not have had the relationship with my dad that I did have. So he gets sober, my childhood continues, my parents divorce. My childhood is, just that of a divorced kid. I rode the bus to school and spent time in daycare, and definitely just felt kind of ungrounded a lot of the times. And what I mean by that is just not really like anchored in a home life, I guess is the way that I would describe that. So, I was uncomfortable, and I was uncomfortable a lot, but I was also really good at school. So I was able to just do well in school and perform and get good grades and, be a pleasure to have in class and all of that stuff. So it gave me an identity. That's what I identified myself with. But I was also, unruly, and I'm pretty sure that not an exaggeration, I think my third grade teacher had a nervous breakdown because of our little group of kids that was in her third grade class. She did later come back and they let her teach sixth grade, but she did not do well in the third grade class. So I don't start. There's also there's a picture of me in my high chair with a Budweiser can like this, with people in the background smoking, and people are taking photographs. They're not taking the beer can out of my hand. So I don't know when my first drink was, right? Was that my first drink? I'm not really sure. But I remember my first drink to get drunk. I remember my first, that first drink. And I was about 14 or 15 years old, and it was a Mickey's 40, and I was in a hotel room in Vegas because I was there for a cheerleading competition. And I don't... I don't know that I had that immediate sense of ease and comfort. I don't have that. I don't look at that experience and think I'm home or any of those things. What I did have was an immediate obsession and an inability to not drink. That happened to me immediately. So I could kind of manage it after that. Between the ages of 14 and 17, I was able to, I'm a kid. I'm in school, so I'm not drinking all the time. I'm drinking on occasion. I'm drinking at parties, that sort of thing. But I am always not able to control my drinking. And if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, what I discovered when I very first got here, what I understood when I heard that woman share in the meeting, was that I could not drink. I had no control over how much I was going to drink, and I had no control over when I was going to stop, and I had no control over what was going to happen. I just didn't know. Sometimes I made it home and everything was fine, and sometimes, I did not. There was a lot of just chaos and wreckage and bad behavior and, picking fights and not coming home and lying to my parents about where I was, and kind of just running the streets and not really, not really making decisions that aligned with my values or were very safe or healthy. So, that's what my drinking looked like. I lost my train of thought. We'll bring it back. So that's going to happen too, by the way. I had a Greek coffee right before I came here, and we're going to just blame it on that, is a little bit of extra caffeine. I don't know if it's enough caffeine that my sobriety date is tomorrow, but we'll reel it in. So I was drinking, so the obsession, that's what I was talking about. So I didn't understand that the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind when I immediately got here. I didn't get all of that. But what I was able to do was work the steps and then over time start to develop a deeper understanding of what that was, right? So that's how I understand my alcoholism as it is described in the big book in the doctor's opinion and as it is shared through the stories in the back of the book and through you guys here in the room, right? I understand that I have an allergy of the body. Like once I ingest alcohol, it's I can't stop ingesting alcohol. And then once I stop ingesting alcohol, I can't stop thinking about ingesting alcohol again. And even if I have a break in that thought process, eventually it's going to come back. And eventually I am going to pick up the next drink unless I can have a spiritual awakening. And the way that I get a spiritual awakening is by doing the 12 steps. Sometimes people, I think, get that reversed order. So I did get struck sober. So when I came into that meeting, so I'm drinking alcoholically at 17. I'll go back. So I'm 17 years old. I'm a full-blown alcoholic by the time I'm 17. Like there's no control. I'm drinking differently than my peers. And I've gone from being a really, really excellent student, and I was admitted to a prestigious 4-year university, and now in my senior year of high school, I'm failing out. Like if my senior year grades had actually counted towards getting me into college, I would not have gone into college, but they didn't, so I got to go. I just barely made it out of high school, and it was a dramatic shift from before drinking and after drinking, right? So I graduate from high school. I've moved out of my parents' house and had the good fortune of moving in with a friend whose mom liked to do cocaine. So she also liked to do cocaine with us. So we were, so now I have a way to facilitate my drinking that is allowing me to drink like a lot more like how I would prefer to, which is just more. So that's what it was like. That's what it was. And I was in a controlled environment. So yes, my using was out of hand and not normal. I don't know how normal people use cocaine at 17 years old, but anyways. But I was in a safe environment. I was in a contained environment, I guess you could say, right? So like I'm getting my drugs from my friend's mom, so it's fine. And now I go to college, and now I'm a little bit more like loose, right? I'm like out, not loose. Free in the world, right? So already it's my first semester, my first night of arriving at college. I did not sleep at home. I slept on somebody's couch, didn't know where I was, how I got there, who anybody was that was around me, and that was what it was like, and now that's what it was going to be like for my entire college experience. Every once in a while I could like hang on a little bit and like not drink quite as much, but really I just drank my way through college. I drank and I lied my way through college. And I lied like this. I really liked my major, and I was really good at, I excel at things that I'm interested in. So I really loved my major. I discovered, of course, my major was religion, by the way. I came from a family that was not religious, but I entered into this academic world where I just gravitated towards this intellectual exploration of religion. And so I have a degree in religion with a minor in business. And the college I went to is actually known for their business school, so I was just trying to keep everybody happy. So my parent, my dad, my stepdad used to be like, "What are you going to do, sell Bibles?" No. I'm going to wait tables, because that's what I did after I graduated. But so I'm excelling in my major, and I'm developing relationships with two of my professors. I have a New Testament and an Old Testament professor, and I have really good relationships with them, so much so that eventually I end up working for one of them, and that's where I was house sitting for one of them when I got sober. So I'm like allowed to take graduate school classes. It's like wild. I'm like failing a class that's about writing an email. I graduated from the first class of my college that had email all 4 years. And we had to take a class that taught you how to write. I swear the whole class was about writing an email. And I like failed. That's what happens when you don't go. So I'm failing that, but I'm like taking graduate level theology classes. And this is just kind of how it always is for me. Like I'm always kind of living in these like two, paths. I'm like living with a drug dealer, winning academic awards, like, and going nowhere fast, by the way, because I'm doing what I want. None of what I'm doing is like geared towards any like long-term anything except whatever I want to do. So, because I'm like studying archaeology. So I have this one professor, and I had such a huge resentment against her because she was so on to me, and I was so pissed off about that. Like I could not get this woman to just get with my program. And so whereas like her boss did, and I was like, well, you work for him, like you should probably do what he does, which is do what I want. The resentment that I got towards her is at one point I had a final paper that I needed to turn in, and I needed to turn it in on time. She told me, you better turn that paper in on time, and I completed the paper, but I turned it in like a day late, and she gave me a D for an unturned in paper, and I was like, can you believe it? Can you believe she's giving me a D for this paper that I didn't turn in because I didn't turn it in the time that I was supposed to? But I did it. It was just late. I mean, I just was so like. And I would have sworn on my life that she like had it out for me, that it was about that paper. It was not about that paper. It's about all the other demonstrations of disrespect that I, showed her over the course of the time that I was taught by her, which was a couple of years. And so this is an example of one of those things. So I am supposed to meet a student that's actually getting a master's degree to discuss a project, because I have been invited to do this project with this graduate student. And I am drunk and can't or won't go to this meeting. And I am on my cell phone in my room saying, I'm standing by the fountain. I can't see you. Okay, let's reschedule. Like, he is there. He is there, and I am not. I am in my house, loaded. So that's not like something I did all the time, but that's an example of some insane, just like, how is that not gonna be, how do we not know that that's happening, right? And this was the professor that I was talking about, I was in her class when I was doing this type of behavior. So I graduate. I managed to graduate from USC, and so in 4 years, and with a degree, and like all the things, and like not a 1.2 GPA. I just somehow managed to like get it together. And so my worst, the most painful part of my drinking was when I was there, in part because I really did like school and wanted to excel at that. But I was just not able to, I was only able to like run as fast as I could to like outrun my alcoholism, right? To outrun the consequences of my drinking, to try to like navigate it all so that I could pull the wool over everybody's eyes and, keep focusing more on the I'm winning awards part and less on the I'm failing Spanish 1 again part. So I graduate, and now I'm out of school, and I say this a lot, that like I said, my most where I had the most consequences, I would say, was before was earlier than when I actually got sober. But what was happening when I got sober is, I really love this description, which is my life was getting worse at a rate faster than I could lower my expectations. So I was not able to justify some of my behavior anymore. I wasn't able to say, I'm in college, I live with a drug dealer, this is why this is happening to me. I had to face the fact that, like, it was just me, and this is what was happening, right? So what it was like is, I'd never said I was going to quit drinking, not ever, not one time. I would quit doing drugs, and then I would just drink. And then I would do drugs because I was drinking, and I can't, it's just, that's what happens. So, examples are things like, I'm standing in my house while I'm in college, and I'm holding a big gulp cup of probably Jack Daniels and Diet Coke, and I'm explaining to everybody how, like, I'm not going to be, doing outside issues for however long I'm not going to be doing them. And somebody walks up behind me. I'm in a hallway in my house, and somebody walks up behind me and says, I just dropped a hit of acid. And I was like, can I have one? And literally it was like that. Like, and that is what it was like. Like, that is what it was like. I have probably 100 of stories like that, I was always quitting for 1 second. I commend you anybody that was able to put together more than 24 hours, not locked in an institution. Like, I don't get it. So I'm not able to meet my obligations. I'm not able to do the things that I need and want to do. I'm not able to take the tests that I need to take to get into graduate school, let alone go to graduate school. Like, I just am not high functioning, and I'm more and more and more irritable. I'm a more and more difficult employee, and things are just getting worse and worse. And so at the end of my drinking, I think there was a couple of catalysts. One was I got into a physical altercation with a boyfriend. I had a sister, not a minor physical altercation. My stepsister was always in many physical altercations with her partners, and I did not want, like, to me that was like just a huge thing that I did, like a line I did not want to cross. And so when that line was crossed for me, it was one of those moments where my life was getting worse at a rate faster than I could lower my expectations. So that happened. And I was house sitting for my boss, and I was doing things like driving his car drunk to the store to get alcohol. And I explained this the other night, and this is probably the best way that I've ever explained it. It's not that was like the worst thing I've ever done or the most dangerous thing that I used to go drunk driving, like all the time, like as a hobby, wasted. I liked to do that, and I didn't see any problem with that. That was just like what I wanted to do. So it wasn't like this was some extra low choice that I made. It was that I was getting close to getting caught, right? So I'm not able to compartmentalize my behavior as well as I had been before. I'm not able to hide as well. And I'm like running the risk of being found out in like a more immediate way. And that felt unacceptable, plus this other situation that happened. And so that was what happens next is I go to give my dad a cake. I wasn't like, I think I should get sober. No, that is not what happened. What happened is my dad was like, come give me this cake. And I was like, fuck, sorry. I love to swear, and I love the F word, and I'm trying not to say that tonight. But that is how I felt at that moment. Shucks. See, it's not the same. It's not the same. So I go to give my dad his cake, and I used to call this meeting my yearly affirmation that I'm not an alcoholic meeting, right? And so I would go there and be like, no, thank you. What I'm doing is still working. I am not coming in here. And like, my dad got sober at the Valley Club, and I don't know what the Valley Club was actually like, but what I remember the Valley Club being like is like, the wisest guy there was wearing overalls with no shirt and didn't have most of his teeth, and he had the most going on. You know what I mean? So I just was like, I'm not right, I can't, right? So, but on this day I didn't see any of that. That's not what I saw. On this day I saw a woman share who I identified with. And I was just so broken. Do you know what I mean? I was just so broken. I just couldn't outrun. It's so much work. It is so much work to be an alcoholic. It is so much work to be an alcoholic and to try to control and enjoy your drinking and, hide and lie to yourself and, live that experience. So when I go to that first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's in Palos Verdes, and my recollection of it was as if this church was like a lantern on a hill. There's no streetlights in Palos Verdes. It's summertime, but the meeting's late. There's like this church on the hill where there's like all these eucalyptus trees, and it was like a lit up lantern, and everybody was laughing and like, being all alcoholics in a meeting like you guys do. And I was like, how don't they know my life is over? Right? Like, don't they know, like, this is it? My life is completely over. And I went in that meeting and I identified as an alcoholic, and I've been sober ever since. And I was struck sober. So I could not drink, and now all of a sudden I have a day. Now all of a sudden I have 2 days. Now all of a sudden I have a week. And I'm doing anything, like, I'm listening, like, you're telling me what I need to do and not do in order to, what not to do and what to do to stay sober. Like, I am not talking to any of my old friends. I am not going to bars. I am not doing any of that stuff. I'm not associating with any of these people. I am in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, I can't hear I don't really know what's going on, right? But I hear things about like being of service, cleaning up the chairs, cleaning up, doing all of those things. And so I just did that. I could not be in my skin or in the room for 1 second without having something to do. So I was so grateful when they raise your hand if you want to clean something. I'm like, I'll clean all the things. So that's what I did. I got a sponsor, right? My sponsor at the time had 2 years. And I think this is so important. Like, I didn't need somebody at that time that had 20 years of sobriety. I needed her. She had a sponsor that also attended meetings with us, right? So I had this woman that was very close to what I had just recently experienced, and she was and I had a relationship, and she was being guided by a woman who had, 30 years or something at the time. And this was meaningful and important to me. She did not carry me through life. She did not teach me how to like brush my teeth again and figure my everything out. She told me what to read in the book and, met with me to do my inventory and helped me, did my third step prayer with me and, tolerated me when I was bonkers. Like, I was so insane when I got here. I didn't know what a feeling was. I did not know how to act right. I did not know anything, right? So, and she was with me through all of that, and took me through the steps and taught me like how to be a normal human being by just being a normal human being, right? She's the one that at 30 days of sobriety, I was working for my professor, and I needed to go on this trip to London for 2 weeks, and I have 30 days of sobriety. And I'm hearing other people like, oh no, we don't go anywhere. We just stay here and we don't do that, and we go to meetings, and how am I gonna get 90 meetings in 90 days when I have to go to do this job, right? And I call my sponsor and I'm like, I don't know, I don't think I should go. Like, they're telling me that I gotta do 90 meetings in 90 days. And she's like, no. She said, we don't get sober to not show up for our responsibilities. And it was a very meaningful and impactful thing, because over the course of the next 10 years of my sobriety, there's a lot of nonsense that happens in here and crazy stuff that people say that's not in the book. And she was the first person to bring me back to reality that some of these wild ideas, that's not what we're doing here. We're learning how to cultivate my relationship with a higher power so that I can start to understand what the principles are, so that I can start applying them to my life, right? So I go to London, I get on a plane, I chain smoke the entire time I'm there, I work, I do my job that I'm supposed to do, I show up for my job, I drink coffee, I do the New York Times crossword puzzle, rinse and repeat for 14 days. And I come back and I'm still sober. Right? I do things like they ask me to carry a flag that's not true. They didn't ask me. They asked somebody to carry a flag in the roundup. The South Bay roundup is usually the 4th of July weekend. I get sober on June 24th. So I'm at a women's meeting, and they're like, we need somebody to carry this banner. Well, nobody raises their hand, so I'm like, I'll do it. Why? Because I was told you do all those things. And so they're like, okay, because I have like 5 days of sobriety or something, and this is back when like you couldn't just print a banner on your phone. Do you know what I mean? Like you actually had to like call a guy, and like it cost a few $100. And so I was driving a 1989 Toyota Corolla. It didn't have a cracked windshield yet. That was later. And it wasn't 1989, by the way, right? So it was an older model vehicle. And they go to like give me, and it like reeks of cigarettes because I used to also smoke a lot. And they like go to give me this banner, and I just can imagine now, then I didn't think about it, but I can imagine they're like, we'll never see this girl or this banner ever again. Bye, right? But I go to this roundup, and I'm told to wear red, white, and blue, which I do. I wear red, white, and I dress up like a 4th of July firecracker, and I'm like, just carrying, it was the lamest thing that I've ever done in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was so uncomfortable, but it was willingness, you guys. It was willingness. Like sometimes willingness looks like weird stuff, you know, and but that's what it was for me, you know, and so I start working the steps, and my first understanding of powerlessness and unmanageability is just as I've described, like hearing that woman in that first meeting discuss her rage and how she was feeling, and then being able to relate to that, and then being able to finally admit that I couldn't choose to not drink, right? That this wasn't a choice all the time, and that I really just, I couldn't. I couldn't do it. And step 2 for me when I was brand new was literally just continuing to show up. If not for the belief that something was happening here that was going to allow me to stay sober, there would be no reason for me to keep coming back and keep doing the things that I was doing. So it was really that simple. My 3rd step prayer, my sponsor had to do with me under duress, because I insisted that we do it right now, because I needed to do it right now, because it was she was like, whatever. I remember I took it on my knees in like a parking lot. And I didn't even know what that meant when I did it for the first time. I had no idea what that meant. I still read that part of the book, and I'm like, geez, this is wild. Like I still so much identify with all of that self-centeredness and that self-seeking. And every once in a while, I want to pretend that whole part about like, I'm, more gracious next time is not accurate, but it is. That is, how when I am not paying attention, that is the behavior that slips underneath my radar, because I want to tell you that it's all because I'm, a kind, loving, generous, spirited human being, as I try to wrest satisfaction out of whatever it is. I wrote my inventory was embarrassing. My inventory had 200 things on it. My first inventory was wild, and it was like everything. The IRS, the news, everything was on there. I didn't want to leave anything out. Like, I was scared, you guys. I got struck sober. When you get struck sober, you are scared. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to, I didn't want to get struck unsober, so I wasn't going to leave anything out. And so 6 and 7, I really love the way that I experience 6 and 7 now differently than I experienced it when I was brand new. The way that I have had it done with me now, and the way that I like to do it, is we're writing down those defects. So I'm reading my inventory to my sponsor, and my sponsor is like keeping track of what I'm telling her. Do you know what I mean? And then we're having a conversation about that. And the first time that somebody did this with me, I was like, I can't believe this lady is telling me these things about myself. This is wild, and she is mean and wrong. And that's not true. Those things were all there because I'm the one that's telling her. So she's like, actually, right here is where you said that. And I was like, okay, whatever. But, that's okay that I have those feelings about that, right? And so kind of glossed over those, made my amends. I don't have like earth-shattering amends stories. The one that was the most pivotal for me at that time was that I had been stealing from my bosses. I had been like padding my hours, and I had to go to them and be like, I was padding my hours and stealing from you, and how can I make this right? I probably said it better than that, but actually probably not. I approached them with humility and the willingness to suffer the consequences of my actions and the willingness to make it right. And that is not something that I had ever known how to do before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I then proceed to do, I have 10, 11, and 12, and those have evolved over time. Those are an ever-evolving experience for me. And 10 is just very much, today, I'll describe it as very much about kind of vigilance. I've had some challenging experiences in sobriety. I've been married, I've had 3 children in sobriety, I've been married in sobriety, I've been divorced in sobriety. And today it's about being vigilant about my fear more than anything else. It is the root of my self-centeredness. It is where things get the most out of control. And if I allow myself to ruminate or rest in that fear for too long, this thing is crazy. Like, it is a wild animal. I don't, it's what do they say? It's like not a safe neighborhood to travel in by yourself. The way that I handle that is, I was actually sharing this recently. I have like a notes app that has like my fears on it, and I'm like, please don't read that when I die. Please, nobody get a hold of my notes app full of my fears. It's long. It's really, really, really long, and has a lot of wild things on there. But that's what helps me like get down to like what's really going on. And once they're there, as far as I'm concerned, like that's me asking God to help me with those, Prayer and meditation, I really enjoy meditation. Like, I appreciate the opportunity to like get connected with my higher power and pause. And I'm doing something these days where like I'm using my breath to just get out of my head and into my heart, out of my head and into my heart. And that's been really beneficial to me. The 12th step is life-changing. I get to come here and speak. I get to work with other women. I get to show up at my panel. I get to do all of those things. It's a privilege. And if when I'm not perceiving it as a privilege, I'm in trouble. It really is a privilege. And I'll just end with this. I am surrounded by the most incredible human beings. And these people are not incredible because they are doing it the best or doing it, without complaining or doing it in any kind of way except authentically. And I also know that I have people that I can go to, and they are not going to let me die behind the bullshit that I tell myself. They are not going to co-sign when I'm telling them it's someone else's fault, when I'm telling them this is the problem, when I'm telling them, whatever it is. They will listen to that for a minute, but then we're going to get down to the solution, and that's what I found here in Alcoholics Anonymous. That we program thing is like, the we is the other people that are also working the same program, that have done it and experienced the relief from that obsessive mind, and then we get to do that together. So that when I start to drift away from my higher power, when I start to feel that separation, when I start to feel some kind of way about something that one of y'all is doing, they can rein me back in and remind me how simple it is to come back to that peaceful centeredness. So I haven't had to drink in 20 years. I'm so freaking grateful. I've had a lot of reasons to drink, and drinking is always an option. It's just not the solution, and I know that today, so thank you.